There's an important universal principle that you've got to understand if you want to get consistently great mixes, and it's called whack-a-mole. I'll explain. But first, my name is Joe Gilder. This is Home Studio Corner. If you want to watch my videos and get mixing advice, you can do that. But if you really want to transform your mixes, you need a mixing system. That's what I show you in my free 5-step mix guide. If you have not downloaded it, it is my gift to you. Go to 5stepmix.com to get your copy now. Okay, so whack-a-mole. You know what I'm talking about. The game at the arcade, you hold this big fluffy hammer thing, and then a mole pops up, and you whack it. And as soon as it goes down, another one pops up and you have to whack that one down and it just goes on forever. That's what mixing is like. Maybe a better term is something like Newton's laws of thermodynamics, but that's not nearly as exciting as whack-a-mole. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to explain it with a couple of examples because that's probably the best way to get this across, because I know it sounds weird, but stick with me. So I've got 3 examples. The first is drums. Let's say you got a mix and you realize, man, my drums are too quiet. And so you go in and you use EQ to maybe boost the lows and highs to get it to come through a little more. And you use some compression because compression tends to make things louder, right? You do both of these things. Then you go on and move on to other things and you come back later and say, now the drums are too loud. Or now the drums are loud enough, but the cymbals are super washy and the EQ feels weird and the low end is too much. It's shaking everything in the room. I probably have to turn that back down. And so you turn that back down and then you realize, well, now the drums are too quiet. And it's this constant round and round we go, endless feedback loop that happens on just about everything in a mix. So if we were in a room right now, you would be nodding your head agreeing with me because it happens to all of us. So what's the solution? We'll talk about that in a second. A couple of more examples. Second example, EQ. A friend of mine, Jeremy Casella, wonderful producer, artist, songwriter. He was telling me a story about a record he finished. It was one of his, and I think he was in the room sitting with the mix engineer and said, "Can you turn the piano up in that section?" Now, most people, at least I can speak for myself, if I'm sitting there with the artist and they say, "Hey, can you turn that piano up?" I'll say, "Sure," and push the fader up. But this engineer stopped for a second and said, "Okay, you want the piano up?" "Yes, I want the piano up. I can't quite hear it as much as I'd want to." He takes a second, listens to the piano, and determines that really what the artist wants is a little more mid-range. Like a bulk of the sound of a piano is in that kind of 300 to 800 range, that kind of almost like I think of that range as like the sound of an alto singer, right? It's kind of right in there. It's not too low, but it's not super high either. It's just right in the middle. So he grabs an EQ and just boosts those mid frequencies. The piano is now louder, but only in those frequencies, so it doesn't mess up all the good work he's done in the lows and the highs, getting that piano to sit just right. If he turned up the entire piano, he would cause 2 more problems because probably the lows and the highs are now not behaving like he wants them to. So by creating a problem by turning it up, now he has to solve 2 more problems. You see what I'm talking about? Instead, he solved the real problem, which is the singer wants to hear the piano more. Let's boost those frequencies because that's really what they're asking for. Third example, compression. Compression is beautiful. It's wonderful. Please use compression. It is a glorious thing. But I'll say it always has side effects, right? It might make your snare drum sound amazing, but then it causes the cymbals to be washy. Or it might make the vocal sound super in your face and aggressive, but now there's sibilance and the S's and T's are so loud, it feels like they're going to like chop your ears off, right? That's a byproduct of compression. So what's my point? Should we just like throw our hats in? Oops. That went too far. I was going to say throw in the towel, but then I threw my hat and said, are we just supposed to give up and say, well, I guess I should just sell my gear and buy a boat because I'm never going to, the mixing, Joe just said mixing is an eternal process that never ends. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is if you know you're playing whack-a-mole, you can adjust how you play. Which means if you're going to solve a problem, make sure, first of all, that you're solving the right problem, right? And then when you do solve that problem, know that that solution will probably cause problems elsewhere. If you're doing your job well, the problem that you solve will be much greater than the problems that it causes. And eventually you'll run out of problems to solve, and that's how you know your mix is finished. So for the sibilance example, the vocal Sounded wimpy. I add a bunch of compression. Now it's super aggressive and in your face, but now there's sibilance. But the aggressiveness and in my face part of it is what I want. So I'm willing to accept the sibilance for the sake of this. But I do still need to deal with the sibilance, and that's where things like a de-esser come in, or maybe a dynamic EQ, or maybe both, or something like that. But I deal with that. Good news is, in that particular situation, it's pretty easy to deal with sibilance on a vocal. It's hard to make a vocal work in a mix without the right amount of compression. And I tend to like to really slam my vocals with compression most of the time. So my workflow is typically compress, de-ess. That rhymes. All right, the rain is coming down. It is likely that my power is about to go out. So, thanks for watching. Go try this on a mix. Where do you find whack-a-mole situations in your mix? Leave a comment below. Maybe we can kind of make the comment section a collection of great ideas for places where this solved this problem but created this problem. And if you learn enough of those, mixing becomes really easy. By the way, if you don't have a mixing process to know what to work on now and when you're finished, you need my 5-step mix guide. Go to 5stepmix.com, 100% free. Thanks for watching.